now we just talked to Melissa, and her story is amazing. So let's talk a little bit about like your relationship with that. So because the business incubation segment is probably going to be my favorite segment out of this whole thing that I'm doing, because it's so important and it's so brilliant. Like it was taking this town that could have had a parking lot and been dead and been over. This town would have been over. And instead, the Palmer went in. They incubated a couple businesses, and then you guys came in a few years later, and just through the grace of the universe and synchronicity, you just ended up with this, cachet of money that you were able to get, and then you started reinvesting in the town, and before you know it, you've got a town again. But she was the first business to prove this concept that all started with Mike's brain calling Tom up saying, look at the balloon. Can you see the balloon from your house? I mean, this is going back years ago, but this art of like him putting that flagpole in to Ida Ann's coming in is this beautiful story, because now that was the first business to say, you know what? Now you got a town, right?
Yeah.
Now you got something. And then did you guys put the incubation in where Roxanne is after Ida Ann's, or did that go in at the same time?
That opened a year ago, so that came about the same time.
So that came after?
Yeah.
Or around the same time? Okay. So when you met Melissa, right away, did you kind of get what they were wanting to do, or no? Did you, were they adamant about like, look, this is what we want, and you guys were like, perfect?
Yeah, I mean, the goal was to basically find a business, and we're not necessarily set on a restaurant, but one of the precursor of culture.
You're set at a restaurant.
Right. Well, something that would prove that the place is happening. It could have been a wine bar. It could have been, but any of the precursor of the bigger town where food culture is coming, and also a service that would be of value for our tenants.
Right.
So.
And you had mentioned this in the interview that we did. So this really did have a component of it that in the context of what you guys were building, infrastructure that you had planned, it was really important for you to have a place that people could, like if I got a guest coming, I got a date coming, I got a family coming, you have a place now. You don't have to drive to Olean or wherever. Exactly. We can just walk downstairs.
The whole point is to make Cuba livable and make comfortable in small community. But if you don't have the necessarily, services like there's already a gym, there's already a coffee place. Well, the next thing would be a restaurant or something higher end. And there's the diner, which serves perfectly the community. Right. But the next level will be a restaurant.
But it's not the same. I mean, it's not the same. And that's nothing against them. It's just an honest. That's a truism, because it's a American diner, right? So if I've got family coming into town, and so the other thing that I thought was brilliant that they went in there and that you guys all helped them get in there and you support them so well, is the impression that it makes. So if let's just say I moved to Cuba, right? And then my family was like, why the hell are you moving to Cuba? What the heck? What's in Cuba? Exactly. And like, no, you don't understand. You have to see the town. Now, granted, social pressure. But if they come down and they have a great dining experience, and they come to the Palmer, and they go get a beer with me at the brewery, and we walk around the street and it's beautiful, and then we go drive around the lake, they're sold.
Right.
They have an inn to stay if they want to have an extra space. So that we're starting to be at the point where all the services you need in a small town here. Right. So you have limited choice, of course, because it's a small town. Sure. But you have pretty much all the components.
Yeah, and remember we were talking about town raising. That's what's happening here. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. And what opportunity would ever come in life where you have an opportunity to redefine a town? Right? Yeah. It's amazing. I was like, somebody needs to pitch this to HGTV. Really? Because they have a couple shows like that, but not like this.
Yeah, we're looking into that, but because we were working and we only that during the weekends at the beginning.
Right. Well, I could help you with it for sure. I've thought about it because I was like, I don't know. I've done this for 15 years, and I did a little bit of this out in California, and I don't ever remember seeing a town that was doing this in this way. Like where you're taking the town and saying, wait, you need this. And then it goes in. You need this, and it goes in, and you're redesigning an American town.
I saw a show that was like that.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the name?
You know what? It was some interior designer from maybe Los Angeles or some big city who had gone back to his southern, like Alabama, Louisiana, somewhere. He had gone back there and bought the house that and did it. Then he got involved with the town.
Oh, it's still on.
Is it?
Yeah, it's on. It's actually on Saturdays, I believe. It's I can't remember the name of it, but it's a pretty famous show. And he does do that because they go in and they'll take a building and they'll finish that building, and it is still going.
And he sort of got the town because he can't. He can't do it. So he gets the town involved in. Or maybe that was another show and combined the two of them.
No, but there is a town.
The town involved in making it theirs.
But
it's not.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a little bit different, and this is an inspiring moment, in the history of this country right now, because and you guys have driven across the country. Have you seen what it's everywhere? It's not just here. I mean, I was in Northern California, even with all that money in San Francisco, all those towns. I mean, it's hit or miss, but there's a lot of towns. The more agricultural you get, the more north you get, the more decimated a lot of those towns are. And there's no reason for it anymore. It maybe there's a purpose because things happened and a lot of mistakes were made for a long time here, but it can be corrected if you have the bones in the infrastructure.
Right.
You can correct that.
The biggest reason was the depopulation was really the jobs.
Right.
There's just really the industrialization moved all the jobs to the towns, and so that's why nobody's farmers anymore or agriculture. And it keeps on going because all the bigger cities have the best jobs, and you had to be on premises. So I think with remote work, they're going to have the ability to move and live wherever they want.
Right.
But, that's something that is new. It's not completely accepted by everyone yet.
Sure.
And it's not enough. So,
right.
And, only have people, the problem is it's kind of the chicken and the egg. If to live in a place like Cuba, if you choose it because you already have a good job, a remote work, and you can go wherever you want, you're only going to pick Cuba if Cuba already has all the services and all the things you like. So how do you have to bring them out? At the same time, you have to bring businesses to have all the things together, but the businesses cannot live without the tenants supporting them, and the tenant's not going to come if there's not enough services around.
Yeah,
so it has to be happening pretty fast.
Almost simultaneously, to agree. It's like literally you want to prop something up, and while it's wobbling, get something underneath it, and then you go over here, and then you just try to sustain that enough. It's almost like how a lot of us build our businesses, right? I mean, because you're just hanging on by a thread, and you just try to get something underneath it as quick as you can to bolster that a little bit, and you just keep building that. It's like Jenga. You have that wood blocking. You just kind of keep building until you got a solid foundation.
So what helps, and I think we picked Cuba also because it was, between multiple towns, not really close to anything, but not a suburb of a bigger town, but it's close to Olean, it's close to Wellsville, and it's still, reachable to Buffalo and Rochester. So you still can go places and get whatever you want and need, and and you can within 15-20 minutes be in Olean, and you have all kind of other options if you need more options. The goal was to have everything that you need to live: a grocery store, which we have a great one, a great place to eat, a gym, a place to have a haircut, those type of minimal services that you need to have a comfortable life.
Yeah, and that's what you're doing here. And that's just going to keep, I think at this point, once the brewery comes in, once we get another 6 to 8 months into our economy now, and because of the inflation, we went from the pandemic to the inflation, and it's been a mess. But things are starting to slowly settle down now, thankfully. So I think once we get into this new build, you'll see,
within a year, we have, 7 businesses at O'Malley's. We have the restaurant. There's the 3 businesses here on this side opening. So you're talking about more than 10, a dozen businesses within a year, on Main Street itself. It's pretty,
That's huge.
It's huge.
That's probably unheard of. That's what I mean about a TV show, because it's you don't see this much growth in a small town like this, and you just lost the major employer. They're going to Franklinville. Now, granted, I think a lot of people still live here because it's only a half hour down the road.
And it's not transition yet. That's going to be in a couple of years, probably down the line. But I don't think we're necessarily going to lose many people because this is a nicer place to live.
Beautiful. Yeah, Franklinville's not well. Yeah,
exactly. So, and hopefully by then, in 2 years, people living here will want to commute instead of moving to Franklinville.
Well, sure, and their properties are going to be worth more anyway. They're just going to keep going up. So why are you going to get rid of that? You probably wouldn't. That's true, actually. And what do you guys at this point? And I don't think we really mentioned this before, but is there something that you guys? Because you guys are architects of this town now. Really, I mean, you guys are you're the ideologues, though, to a degree, because when you came in, nobody from the outside had really. I know, Terry, you had a relationship with the town for decades, but you weren't a resident here.
Right.
So your relationship with the town changed when you guys became residents, but you're kind of the ideologues because you guys got to say, well, wait a second. Like you said, we want a good place to eat, right? So now you have one. And now you've got the brewery going in. Now you have that. Right.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to create a town when, like, I know what I like, so I basically was looking for everything that I like, and wherever is in there, trying to bring it in.
Right.
And that's basically kind of almost a selfish move. Is like, what if I already get, if I get all the services I need right in Cuba, then that means everybody should probably be comfortable the way I would be.
Well, it was funny because you were saying that before, but in as much as you could say that might be selfish, I thought it's a beautiful thing because I've done the same thing that you guys did. When I moved to New England, I didn't move into the city. I moved into a town because I loved small towns. And so I moved into a small town and it had to have certain things, right? So then my second move in New England, same thing. And then it was just a pattern. I would not move to a town that didn't have these certain criteria. And thankfully, I was able to find them. But it makes all the difference in your quality of life. And yeah, it was selfish to a degree because I wanted those things. But the quality of my life and the quality of your life and the quality of everybody's life is vitally important because, for all we know, we only have one. So why not make it the best life you can? And really, when you move to a small town, that's an investment. Because a lot of times the convenience for some things isn't there. So you're going to spend money driving, you're going to spend time going to get some other things, and it's just part of life.
And that brings us a lot of fun. I mean, the restaurant, for example, between, they're doing those dinner clubs, the wine tasting.
That's awesome.
Amazing. I mean, we're having fun. I mean, it's really so much fun to have them around. So if we have this type of fun, I know, and tenants are telling us, they also love the place. It's comfortable. They have wonderful food, and they just experience new things like the wine tasting. So eat things for the first time they never tried before, and that's the type of things we want to bring in a town: is new experiences that you can do right in town, not walking to the place instead of having to take the car.
Well, and so I was talking to Tom the other day. I forget his last name, but
Taylor.
Yeah. And so he was talking to me about how the town used to be, and how he's so thankful for you guys, and he's so thankful for what's happened here, because to a degree now that's happening again. But when he grew up, there was a movie theater, there was a bowling alley, there was a meat market, there was the counter the diner type of, and then there was a 5 and dime store, and they could get clothes, and you literally could leave your door and there was nothing that you really couldn't want. Everything was here for you, and you don't need a lot of that nowadays because we have the internet. We can order things offline, but there are certain things that you need.
Things you cannot order online.
Yeah.
Things that doesn't come through Amazon, you're gonna need right here.
Experiential things.
But yeah, I mean, you don't need really a movie theater anymore.
No,
indeed, you don't.
iPhone.
But you still need a hair cutter. You cannot do it yourself, really.
Yeah.
You need a place to eat because you don't want to cook every day.
Yeah.
So there's certain items that you want, and that's basically what needs to bring to come back to town.
And that's the balance, right? It's just finding those businesses that work within that context.
Yes. And the thing that was also very attractive about Cuba was the history of it. So the fact that it's just not a new town, but it's actually a town that existed 200 years ago. We just celebrated the 200th anniversary. But it's all the fact that it has such a rich history makes it easy for people to reconnect to it.
Right.
And that's why we did the walking tour, where we have signs on the street, explaining standing in front of certain building, explaining the history, people living there, so people can reconnect to the rich history of Cuba. And it makes it so much easier than if it were a brand new town without any architecture of history. This is, I think, what makes Cuba also so special. It's the rich history of the place.
Yeah, it is. So when I was in Northern California, a lot of guys who made some money in the first internet boom were from this town called Windsor. And Windsor's up above Napa. It's about probably 30, 40 miles, but it's kind of the last town before you get far north. And these guys were all born and raised there. And the town was horrible at one point. Boarded up, the square was gone, the town was gone. So I was a pool of men that had a lot of money between themselves. Somehow they networked themselves together, raised the town. But what they did is, instead of putting in new buildings, they went right back to the original architectural plans and built the town the way it looked when it was at its peak at the turn of the century, which was brilliant. And you can't get a parking space, you can't get a room there. You can't, I mean, it's just, it worked like that. Like, they finished the construction and the town just went zoop, and the town will never want for anything again, you know. But it's because of that history that it's what drew people to that town then, and it's what draws us to that town now, you know, because it was so beautiful and it's just like this classic American town. And that's what you have here in Cuba.
Right. I mean, we connect to people, not things. So once you can explain the history of a building, and I tell all the tenants, I leave like a welcome package explaining that their apartment where they live used to be a pool club, or it used to be a Oddfellow Lodge, or it's that really helped them connect to the people that live there for 150 years.
Yeah. Well, you almost could just sit and just, you know, think about what happened in my apartment, you know, like that. It's amazing. I'm a firm believer that the energy that is given to a place stays in that place. That buildings hold that energy, they're contained.
Because you see on the way it's built, on every single mark on the floors. We have, what's that game, the triangle game that they have on the floor? Shuffleboard.
Shuffleboard.
They have like everything. We try to preserve all those.
Oh, you left the shuffleboard?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's really cool.
It matters. It's like the people used to come here and celebrate and what they were trying to do at the Oddfellows is we're trying to help each other, kind of an insurance system. If somebody would have an accident or something, the rest of the group would be able to help them out.
Wow.
So they have a wonderful philosophy that we lost because we're in a different world. We have insurance now, but I think it's nice to be able to reconnect to that past.
Yeah.
The lives people used to have. It was so interesting.
Oh, it's amazing. And so, speaking to the past, when you were, so you would spend summers here, correct? Mm-hmm. So now the town was wholly different. So what was it like when you were a kid, when you would come into town?
Well, so when I spent summers here, I spent them on my
so you never really came into town.
So we never really came into town. But I remember when there was a clothing store here, and I remember when there was a theater here. It was a whole big deal. Like, we could go in and see a movie in Cuba or something, and whole big deal.
But I mean, that by the time you were probably like in your 20s, that was eroded.
That was all.
That was gone.
That was gone.
Right. And so you kept coming here, though, correct?
I kept coming here to see my family, but then I'd maybe come into Cuba for. I can't really remember why I would come into Cuba. Nothing in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, we would never come to Cuba before.
Come from the grocery store or something.
Yeah, we would stop at the grocery store, and that was it.
See? And that's a sea change just in general, because people do want to be here now. You know, I've been here 4 days this week, and other than today, every day, even on a rainy day, actually, I saw people looking at the plaques outside. Every day other than today. I had people come while I was working up here. I had people come in, just strangers wandered into the Palmer, talked to Michelle. Michelle sent them upstairs, and they just wanted to see it. And so if you just look at that arbitrarily, that's 3 couples randomly on a bad weather week that wanted to come to, they wanted to come to Cuba. I asked every couple that I ran into, which is only the 3 of them, but they all said, they said, woke up today and we just wanted to go for a drive and come into town and see what's going on here. So
I mean, the fact that there's something like the paper, the Patriot is showing everything that's happening in the town, and Cuba is mentioned all over the place now because there's so many things happening. And at the Opera House, pretty much every weekend, there's going to be something going on for the next few months.
Right.
So that brings some activity, that brings awareness, and that's where there's a center for entertainment.
Sure.
And the entertainment is where culture comes from. You know, that's one of the big foundation of the culture. The entertainment, the food, you know, good wine, you know, good bread, and that's you got everything at that point.
You do have everything. You know, there's that show Schitt's Creek, and I love watching it because they and when I first started watching it, it's almost surreal because there's just this one diner that they hang out at. But the lesson, and I know I tried watching an interview with Marv Levy, what's his name? Levy, Joe Levy. And to talk about because I think his son wrote the series. But I was really curious because it's the TV, so everything's intentional. But there's a lesson there. And I love that because most of America, you don't need much, but what you need is what that little town had. You need a place, you need a gathering place.
And the progression from them coming from New York City and not having the value of the community and slowly learning those values is what makes the show so endearing.
It's a beautiful story.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, that was kind of the same thing, until I came in this town. I thought that
What?
I forgot what I was saying. Sorry.
That's okay. We were talking about
values and getting into a town and learning about the values of the
small town and how that arc of that story. But there's a truism there, and I thought it was brilliant because it was really subversive because they never. I mean, the daughter. I think they both bemoan it. The daughter and the son are both bitching about it at the beginning because they're just really. But then they turn to love it. Because it gives them a sense of place, a sense of belonging, a sense of well-being, feeling part of a community. And that is such a valuable lesson for generations of people now because we've lost that in this country. And for so many of us in this country, if you're an urban dweller, if you didn't grow up with it, you don't know. But cities are tough. They're hard places to find that community.
Extremely difficult.
Yeah. And I love that you guys did what you did. And I think your story too, because you both were in New York for God knows how long, and you lived in London, and where else did you live?
So I was in France in a few big cities, and then I went to London and then New York.
Yeah,
we lived in the suburb right next to a big town, so I don't really know. My grandparents were living in small towns, so that's where I really enjoyed, because that's where I was spending my vacation.
Yeah.
And that's where we had the most fun. So clearly I like the small towns, but for like a vacation only.
Right. You never saw yourself living in one up until...
No, because, I think as a younger person, you want opportunities, and I didn't see any opportunities in countryside. No.
Well, and there isn't, to be honest.
Especially up to 20, 30 years ago, would be the beginning of the internet. There was absolutely no possibility to get a good job in a small town.
Well, and the beauty of the internet, too, is the fact that it can allow us to live more. It's such a displaced technology, and it displaces us to a degree, but there's an organic sense to it to the degree that I can live anywhere in the world. So if I want to live on a farm and I want to be outside of a small town, I can do that now, as long as my job will allow that. And if I want to live in a small town, I can do that if my job will allow it. But so many jobs now are able to work remotely. And Melissa and I were talking about this too, it will become more and more the standard, and as more and more jobs get that way. And so my hope is that this will now, because think about these beautiful gems that we have all over this country that just need what happened here. They need a group of people to reinvest in the town that care enough to say, you know what, this isn't going to pay off this year or next year, but 5 to 10 years, we're going to have a really special place again. And not only are you not stuck with the old, hypothetically, let's say there was a butcher and there was a clothes store and there was this and then another thing. Maybe it's better that now you have a clean slate because you can provide what you're saying, Lionel, about having the services that are appropriate for today. Right? There are certain things that
is very different from years ago.
Right. And so you can reimagine and remake these towns into something that works within the context of a younger generation. Mm-hmm. So it attracts the younger generation. You know, in other words, if there was a butcher store, and I know, you know, somebody's like in their 20s, you know how kids can be. They're like, I don't want to live in a place like that. That's for my grandma. That's for my grandpa. But you can redefine these towns in a way that makes it attractive to them. And I think that's what Ida Ann's was so important, because it's a cool place. More than anything, it's just a cool place.
Cool place to be. And you know, when we reopened it, and it used to be the post office of the town, so
Ida Ann's was the post office?
Yes. Yeah. So if you look at on the floor, you still have a distinction between the wood floor and the tile floor. The tile floor had a partition,
right,
and that was the partition between the customer and the Spotify.
And then you look up there, and there's tin on the wood ceiling.
Okay.
There's tin in the same shape as the floor.
Oh wow!
It was the lobby.
So unfortunately, that disappeared. They moved it, I think.
Yeah, I think
but
they moved it
there's
down.
still a lot of pieces, and when we found the place, it used to be a tattoo parlor / bookstore.
Okay.
And that with a very low ceiling. There was a
drop ceiling.
Drop ceiling. They had a carpet everywhere. That was really a frightening experience for us just to look at it.
Sure.
When we opened that drop-down ceiling, the beautiful ceiling, the lights that are there were there already.
Yeah, Melissa told me when I first went in. She gave me a quick tour of the place,
and so it was so charming. So we added the mezzanine, and we really thought, it would be kind of a Schitt's Creek thing. It was like really kind of had that feel of the apothecary place.
It is though, man.
A little bit.
Yeah, but it's because it's a place to go.
Yeah.
And it's a cool place to go, and it's a fun place to go. And that's, you just need to, like we were talking about this on your interview before, would that brewery be going in if Ida Ann's was here? Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, you know where that brewery would be going in if Ida Ann's wasn't here? It would be going into Ida Ann's. And she had come and talked to us looking for space.
Oh, so this was already in play.
So she
I talked to her a few months ago before she was
looking. And at the time, we didn't. Our
put her in
friends
contact with everybody. We didn't have any space for her.
Oh, okay. So she came to you and you were like, I wish we could, but we don't have anything right now.
And our friends, where she's putting her brew pub, is where our friends had a store, the Village Outlet, and we didn't know they were going to be done.
Right.
And then all of a sudden,
We did.
we didn't like.
We didn't know when, maybe, right? You just knew that the end was coming for them.
And then all of a sudden, she's in there, and she got it.
And the thing is, the same thing when I meet those, entrepreneurs, and which are really wonderful to see people coming in with those dreams to make it happen.
Right.
I tell them that Cuba is really a great place because you have the leadership that's going to help them out. You're going to have, the mayor's been wonderful. We have a new one that I'm sure is going to be as great.
Right.
We have a group of people that do, this community service to help all those businesses thrive. And this is something that makes a huge difference in your town.
Right. And I mean, you guys did envision this when you first came here, or you didn't? Because I think you had initially told me in the interview that a lot of this just happened.
Oh, I think a lot of this, as it started to happen.
So from the first building was pretty much, we just needed a place to rent. But when we started to say, well, if we're investing 2, 3, 4 buildings, at that point, we have to be providing more than just rental. And at that point, that's where we're like, well, we have to be involved in the businesses. Right. We have to be involved in that comes with it, because at that point we were putting way too much money into the town to not make sure that it would work.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You can't
wait until somehow other people figure out it's a great place to be. We had to be more involved in it.
Yeah, but there was so much forethought and so much vision on your part at one point, and belief that you were doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Because I think if you guys didn't feel in your hearts that you were doing the right thing, you wouldn't have done it, because you both seem very much like driven from your cores and your intuition and saying, look, this is the right thing to do. And there's a reason for that. It's not just like, you're not being whimsical about it. There was a real like, okay, I can see this happening. And your life experience, like I told you guys are the perfect team, because you have all your business experience with your stuff, and you have all your business experience, and you have your construction experience now. And it's just like the melding of those two things is exactly what was needed to take what was built here at the Palmer and what these people had done to then lift it up to that next level. Yeah.
So yeah, I think in the very, very beginning it was whimsy. Oh, this space would make a great apartment. Oh, this space would make a great apartment.
Well, but you guys had the means to do it.
Now we've got 2 apartments, and then there's a retail. So we should probably use something with a retail space.
Right.
And then that's when it started to be like, and in fact, the Village Outlet started out as a garage sale of stuff in the story block where Ivan is, and then it started to. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, we've got it's a working unit here.
So you guys were like literally like the metaphor of wandering into the beautiful woods and just getting like completely taken. Like, look at that, look at that, look at that. And before you know it, you're 2 miles into the woods and you're like, holy crap. So we got to do something about this right now, because we are knee deep in this. But you guys, your passion was just taking over really to a certain point. And maybe was it the fact that you guys, once you did it, it's like anything else. It was no different with me with this. Like I fell into this in a real obtuse way, and before I knew it I was like, oh my god, I love this is my life's work. And you don't realize what you're doing at the time. You're just like enthralled with this like thing that you just discovered, right, that you could do, that you did, and it came out beautifully. And you're like, wait a second.
I mean, it's still in progress. I wouldn't say that it's done or anything, but it's still, it's part of a progress. Once we put those apartments, and we only had not even 2 we rented that store pretty much immediately to a friend of ours, and just again,
the apartments weren't done.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just for like the heat, so she would pay the heat and to keep it warm pretty much. And we saw that she was struggling. There was just customers, there was nobody come in. And we're like, well, that's the problem. If we can't have stores, and there was no many other stores in town at that point, and if we cannot have, new places of business working, that's like what's going to happen to this town. Nobody's going to want to live here if there's really just a ghost town. And it's a question of, again, kind of a balance. You have to have enough people and enough stores to feel safe, first of all, and to feel like you're part of a community. If you have nobody in town and you don't see anybody walking at all, it's not a community. So you have to have enough people in town to patronize the stores, but also to feel safe, to feel part of a community, to run into people and if they have no reason to be on the street, they're just going to use their car and go somewhere else, and then you're not going to talk to them. So how do you recreate that foot traffic and everything? The point of the small town is walking again, is forgetting the car, or put the car in the garage for a few hours and walk.
Well, that's the European in you too.
It's the European, but that's more than just Europe.
Well, it's human. I mean, it's where we come from.
It's where we come from.
In this country, though, we lost our way completely.
But that also lose the communication, or the running to a friend that you know. You're not going to run friend at the mall very lively.
Well, that's the experiential moment of, and they always say that what's become a thing now, and I remember seeing this so in California at my children's show, and I was always seeking sponsors for that. So I was going into all these towns, and a lot of the shopkeepers were telling me at the time, they were like, we're surviving because people want the experience of shopping. And it's not the experience of shopping, it's running into their friend or finding something unique and having that ability to just talk to other people and get out of your house and be part of the community. So the communal experiential thing is almost as important as having that infrastructure built in the first place, because really that's why you're doing it. You want to feel part of this thing, and when you run into somebody, it makes you. I remember the town I moved into. You're European, so let me tell you this story. So I worked for a guy from London. I worked at a record company for a while, and a guy was from London, and a woman was from Sweden. Their name was Marianne. Big, beautiful blonde woman. I think it's this big English dude. And so every day I would ride my bike. This is 7 miles. Sometimes it was 10 if I had to go this other way. So I ride my bike there and I'd be exhausted. And Marianne came up with the idea that on top of riding my bike, I should walk her dog, right? Because she was lazy. So I was happy. They lived in this beautiful McMansion neighborhood in California. So I would walk her dog, and every day I would walk her dog. And there was a lot of other dog walkers there in the neighborhood, and I would meet her neighbors. And so this went on for a couple months, and I got to be part of the neighborhood because every day I'm walking the dog, and I would see Frank, and I would see Vivian, and I would see whoever, and our dogs would play, and we'd talk. And I do this for my first hour of work. So we've done this until after Christmas. It's probably 3 or 4 weeks after Christmas. A little gray outside. John's way down in LA. And Marianne said, I'm going to go with you for the walk today. So we go for our walk. And she never asked what I did. I would bring the dog back. We'd have some little coffee that she made, and we'd start our day. So I'm walking the dog, and all the neighbors aren't talking to her, who's been there for 20 years. They're talking to me. Like, I lived there for 20 years, and they're ignoring her pretty much. They would say hi, and she would say hi, but she wouldn't engage. She wouldn't do anything with them. And so we were out for not an hour. We were out for 2 hours. So we come back, and she was acting real pissy the whole day. And so around 3 o'clock, she pipes up, and she goes, you know, Anthony, in Europe, we have a village idiot. And she said, the village idiot says hi to everybody. Because I say hi to people. And she got offended that, you know, she said, we don't do that in Europe. She said, we keep, you know, is that true or is that not true?
It's well, it depends on where you are. In a small town, everybody, so you basically here, you say hi to people you don't know. Which is, I think, is weird. Like, I went to Richmond, and even taking a jog, people were saying hi to me, and I'm like, I don't know that.
So it freaked you out a little bit.
Yes, but in New York, you wouldn't at all to anybody at any point, unless you look for trouble. In Europe, in small town, you don't say hi to strangers, but you say hi to people you know.
Gotcha.
You know everybody.
Right.
In a small town, you know pretty much.
So she was right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because I was like, why are you mad at that? And she said, I've been here for 20 years and I don't know half of these people. And you seem to like, and I knew them well at that point. And she was like, and I said, well, Marianne said hi to them. And then she said, only people that say hi to people are the village idiot. You know, so, but there is a truth to that. So in Europe, you're just, you know,
but
more subdued.
Everybody knows each other. Like,
Right,
I remember I would go on vacation to see my grandparents. It's a small village of 5,000 people. She knew those 5,000 people.
But I was also raised in a restaurant, so my nature is to say hi to people, you know. But anyways, I always wanted to ask somebody that.
That's the best way to meet people and, you know, get to know.
Yeah, just say hi.
And that's something you can do when you walk. You cannot do it in your car.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You can do it when you have a coffee, or when you go shopping, or when you go to the barber. You don't do it when you're on the highway. That's something you need to do while you're walking. So we have to be able to walk pretty much everywhere and have enough activities. There's the Greenway that is a great place to go biking. There's the walking tour. That's a great 2 hour to spend learning the history of the town. There's we created a tour of the Cuba Link with some historical places. There's all kind of small activities you can do, walking, biking in slow motion, enough to be able to be part of a community, meet people.
Right.
And we met, I mean, in the last 2-3 years, so many people. It was incredible. And we having, you know, dinner with them. We seeing them on the next week on Saturday evening, and we having all the tenants, the people who helped us building.
But you know that. You know how rare that is.
So, but it's something that, you know, is important because we trying to create a community.
Right.
So we don't do that as landlord. We're doing that as, you know, community maker.
Right.
Where if we put everybody in the same room, we know they're gonna find, you know,
commonality.
Exactly, and they're gonna say hi to each other, and maybe they're gonna become friends, and they're gonna have a much better quality of life by knowing the neighbors. In New York City, 20-something years ago when I moved in, I met most of the neighbors, but when we left, I didn't know any of the neighbors. They wouldn't even talk to me. They wouldn't even say hi back to me.
Yeah.
That's how disconnected we became in 20 years.
Wow.
So we left New York City because we didn't want that for us. We wanted to be part again in a community.
Right. So, Terry, where did you live in New York? Were you in the same place through all those years? Were you dealing with like a nice place and you had rent control?
It was rent stabilized. I lived in the same apartment for 45 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I still have
Dude,
the
you got
apartment.
lucky.
I still have the apartment.
Oh, you still have it.
Yeah. My nieces live.
Why would you get rid of it? Right at that point, it would
My
be
niece is living
ridiculous.
there. She goes to NYU, and it's right down the street from NYU.
Wow, because rents there, they were always crazy, but now they're absolutely bonkers.
They're. I don't even know how anybody does it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does. I don't even think the people that are there know how they do it.
I mean, when I moved there, I didn't have a job. I just had some money in the bank, and I got an apartment. And the landlord, he didn't care that I didn't have it. Just like, I'll pay to pay the rent. So I said, I'll pay. I don't know how I'm paying the rent, but I'll pay the rent. But I always paid the rent. And
you kept it. That was smart.
But now you could. I mean, that was $100, I think it was $150 a month, 45 years ago.
Right.
And now, I mean, to move into town, you have to pay $3,500 a month for the same apartment. For that apartment.
I heard the average
how
rent.
much
I just
that
read
is.
it on Yahoo. It says $5,000 is the average rent in New York City.
But I mean, there's
you're
there's
dealing with-
nicer. This is a fifth floor walk up
Right.
railroad flat. I mean, it wasn't really nice. There was a tub in the kitchen. I gutted the
That's
place.
New
So
York,
I did it
right.
because that was my first foray into this
Sure.
in some rental apartment that I had because they didn't care.
Right.
And yeah, so but now you get these $5,000 a month apartments, and you got a laundry facility in the apartment.
Yeah, they're nice. Yeah, but they're expensive. They're tiny.
They're tiny, and
The quality of life we had in New York City was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, we did have excellent restaurants, we had some good doctors, but beside that, I just didn't know what I would be missing.
Right.
Beside a few friends, it was basically, living a community that's always, on the rush, always angry, always
Sirens
quality.
noise.
There's no
Wears you
going outside
down.
and take a walk and be drunk. No, it's like it's all stressful. It's all like high speed, and as a tourist, it could be fun, I'm sure.
Sure.
But living there all the time is becoming very stressful,
Yeah.
and it's extremely difficult to meet anybody, to make any connection.
The transient nature of and everybody's there for a purpose and a reason, and
Yeah.
you don't even know who to trust or who to talk. I mean, it's just a screwed up situation for everybody. And I think there was a time because affordability creates communities,
Right.
So when you get in a situation that's so driven like that, you're going to get people that go in, try to make all their money and leave. But over time, it erodes the quality of life for everyone there, whether you've been there for 40 years or you've been there for a year. And I just think it's a beautiful story with you guys. You had the experience that you had, and you lived in these cities, and you chose this. I think choosing things in life is it's a whole different thing, and it's wonderful if you were born and raised here and you made the investment in Cuba, but it's another thing when you move to a place and stake your whole life on the success of that move, because you don't have any friends, you don't have any family, you're just like, I'm gonna make this work because I love this place. And that's another level of commitment.
Yeah, I mean, it does have some family in here.
Yeah.
we met a guy at dinner 2 weeks ago who's come up here from Tennessee, and we're like, how did you get here from Tennessee? Oh, I got on Zillow. And because I needed certain things.
Oh, wow.
They have horses. He and his wife, 10 years together. They've got horses and dogs, 4 acres in Tennessee. And he said he was able to sell those 4 acres in Tennessee and buy 100 acres up here. They looked at Vermont, but Vermont didn't have the internet infrastructure that he needed because his wife works remotely something.
Right.
They had that here. the land prices in somewhere were too high. They were more affordable here. So he went down through a list of things, and this is where he ended up. And, and he said, we've got a great place up on a hill with 100 acres, plenty of room for the horses and the dogs, and he's a super interesting guy.
You hear this all the time, though, now. And I do this. I've been doing this for years here, and I run into people constantly, whether they're business owners or just people I run into that did that up for Western New York.
And we met him because Melissa had a table of 8, and she's like, oh, well, here's this one guy who's coming in here. We'll stick him at this table. And, we know you guys never shut up, so we'll sit you there. And then, this couple, like from somewhere, there was another couple that came in from somewhere else.
That, either hand attracts, culture. It attracts, people who have culture, who know to appreciate, a good meal. And want to meet people, have conversations like a coffee place here. You bring so much in town, and it's so important that really creates the community.
Sure. Well, do they live here now?
Yes.
Wow. So they're here up on a hill somewhere, and
they're here up on a hill somewhere. So next supper club, he's going to come because his wife will then have moved up here.
Wow. Oh, so they're new.
They're brand new. He's on a mattress in this house there.
Well, you can relate.
I'm sitting there going, should I tell him I've got like tons of crappy furniture that he can... Well, I'm sure they're going to move all their their stuff.
Well, but that's, the nature of this is, I don't know. I mean, I haven't lived in a lot of places, but I've moved 32 times. I lived all over New England, all over Northern California, and that's enough. I mean, I've seen enough at least to know that when I walk into a town like Cuba, there's a lot of beauty here. And there's a lot that would make anyone, if you value these things, call this home. Exactly. And I love the fact too, which I haven't really discussed with anybody, that Olean, because I know when I was living in Woodland and UC Davis before we moved to Sonoma, Sacramento was only 12 to 13 miles away. So, and everybody, that's a common thing there, but and now Woodland is kind of the capital seat there, the county seat, I'm sorry. So they had a lot of good infrastructure there with stores and whatnot, but you have to have that nowadays to a degree. So having the access to Olean, it really makes Cuba more attractive. Because if you took Cuba and you moved it even further out, where you're talking a 2-hour trek to even get to like a grocery store, whatever, a clothes store, let's say, or something else that you would need, then it becomes an issue of logistics. Because you're like, well, I can't swing this, but it's 2 hours to one way, an hour and a half one way. But you're talking, 15 minutes to Olean, right?
And we're right next to the highway.
Yeah, that's another thing, right? The access is super quick.
And in long term, we looked at places that will be, in the next 30 years, that's going to be one of the places comfortable to live.
Right.
Where the rest of the country is going to be over flooded. I'm going to be way too hot.
Did you guys? So let me ask you this: did you know? Because this has been going on for about a decade now. They've been saying this. So that was part of when you guys?
That's part of the plan to invest. More than just one. I mean, the goal was to retire here and just have one rental. Okay. Once we start putting, 4 buildings, putting it in an incubator center, at that point, we need to really look for long term, because that's going to be our main source of income. That's going to be on the long term. Right. So at that point, we had to make sure that was a place that would revive in the long term, and not just have a big boom and in 20 years have everybody move out because it's not a comfortable place to live.
And it's going to happen because it's already happening.
I'm seeing it, yes, and having the internet. The mandate to have internet everywhere and rents for New York State, that makes a difference for that couple to come to New York State and not to come to Vermont, for example.
Yeah.
Everybody need internet access. So having also the structure and the infrastructure of New York State is a huge deal, though a lot of people complain and want to move to Tennessee. Well, we have a great example of a couple who moved out of Tennessee to have a better way of life in New York.
Yeah, and honestly, I had a lot of friends that moved to North Carolina. A lot of my musician friends moved to Tennessee, to Nashville, that type of thing, and then a lot of people moved to Florida. But there's a lot of problems in a lot of those places now because of the climate that we're living in, and also the population base. Because this is what this country does. There's a hot new place today. Everybody goes there, and then they have all the problems that they left. the places they liked, and that's kind of happening. And you can't escape Mother Nature. So, and that's a big thing, and that's really great that you brought that up, because I thought about that a lot. And when we moved from Woodland to Sonoma, we went across this, I think with the highways, but it wasn't highways, it's like back roads. But when we went, we had fires there for a couple of years because the drought was 14 years at that point, and it had burned. It was just my ex-wife cried. I mean, I wanted to cry. It's just like, you can't, what it does to you. And I can't even imagine, we were even born and raised there, but driving that whole drive until we got close to Napa was just burned. This is burned up. Everything, homes, buildings, you name it, the trees, these beautiful, when we first moved in, it was like Oz. It was surreal in its beauty. We had these emerald, at times a year, you just couldn't even see it. You couldn't take in that much beauty. You just get overwhelmed with it. And here we are 11 years later and driving through these burned out hills, and it was just like, this is going to take hundreds of years to come back, if it can come back at all, and that's what everybody's dealing with. And now they've got the floods, but it's just, what's the other side of the coin, right? And then you're just going to go back to a drought in a couple of years because everything's changing. So this area is going to become more and more valuable just for its natural resources.
And this thing all around, from Chicago, all around the
Great Lakes.
So that would be, I think there's a 1 point in the middle of Tennessee. And so I think that will be probably one of the best places to live in 30 years. So it's kind of, it's a long term, but at least we know that the investment we're putting today hopefully will be there in 30 years.
And it will. And this is why Cuba is so valuable as a place. The people here, I've never seen a town like this, honestly. I've never seen a town that so many people, you don't, and they always say it's the same thing with the climate. You don't need everybody to worry about it. You can't. It's impossible because everybody just end up fighting. But you need a couple people that can do the work and get their jobs done. And that's what it is here. A lot of people can just enjoy this. They don't have to see behind the curtain. But people like you and people like the people that are working with the Palmer, that's what's needed. You have this constituency of people that are raising the town again. That's
the
beautiful.
other thing that was attracting to us was seeing so many people doing community service.
Right.
The beautification committee, they just make this town beautiful.
Right.
And they do that on their own time, and and there's this need in every small town to have so much work done for free. It's not a job. We can't really afford to have this beautification committee and pay 4 or 5 people full time. So we can't do that. So I think that's the other part that was so attractive, to see so many people, retired or non-retired, really wanting to participate in the community.
Yep.
And I often joke with people, I tell them, before I came to Cuba, I thought community service had to be court ordered. It's not true.
Well, yeah, it can be, but you basically need this in the town. You're right, and I told you the story when I was at the Chamber of Commerce meeting, the business the dinner that they had, their annual award ceremony. They announced you were. So they announced a beautification committee, right? Yep. And in my head, I'm picturing this has been going on since the town's inception. Because it sounds like that would just be a given, that you'd have a beautification committee. But it's new, it's brand new.
And then a huge difference, the entire park, the lights they put in the park, all the thing happening by the gazebo. Yeah. I mean, it made such a big difference.
Well, did you guys were the ones who did the lights on the buildings, right?
We did the lights.
We did the lights on the buildings.
But because not as something to light, it makes sense.
Do you know how many people, well, maybe you don't know because they probably don't tell you, but everybody has said that to me, almost complete strangers. That's in other towns too. So there you go. So it happened in Alfred. It happened in Olean. That people were like, "Oh, did you get the night shot?" And I haven't got a night shot yet. But they asked me if I got a night shot. This is before I even knew you guys did the lights. So think about that impact, because it's enough for somebody, just a stranger, to tell me, and then everybody here has brought it up, and it's the pride. And nobody ever thought of that. Nobody ever thought of doing that. But you guys thought about it and said, well, wait a second, tell me that. How did you guys come up with that idea?
I'm walking across the street one night from one building to the other. I've got a flashlight in my hand, and I look up after I had painted the pediment on the top of the story block where Ida Ann's is. And I'm like, gosh, you can't even see that. And I take the flashlight and I point it up there. And I'm like, think how good that would look if it was lit up. And that's just this little flashlight. So you can probably we could probably put lights right across the front of this and just like shoot lights up. And I get home and I'm like, okay, uplighting buildings.
Want to get the right thing, and through all our travels too, it's not like a little building is a new thing.
Right.
We that at night you see that, and we had hotels and some
the Eiffel Tower. I mean, like
it does everything.
That's a spectacle.
And sometimes people just come at night just for that, be able to see those places illuminated. So we have to do the same thing. If we get into that level where it's going to be a revived town that's going to be beautiful, it has to be beautiful, and it has to be during the day and at night. And also, the more lights, the more safe people feel too. So they're going to go in the stores, they're going to go out, they're going to feel like they can walk around, and the more light there is.
Well, it adds a romance to it.
And it has a romance, absolutely.
And that is, I mean, I haven't seen another town do that. So in a way, that could it could be a calling card too. And people would love, if you go to dinner, so put it this way. So if I'm on a date, and I take her to Anne's, we're having an awesome time, everything's great, and we walk out and there's this beautiful town, what do you think I'm doing? I'm going for a walk. We're going for a walk.
Right.
And we're probably not even going to say, do you want to go for a walk? Because it's so inviting, it's going to pull us right into it. And that happens in Sonoma where I live. That's what you did. It was so beautiful there. You just walked everywhere. And everybody encouraged that. It was this almost like, it was this like sublimation of the town where you just like could not help yourself. You just like would just follow the muse of the beauty, and you would just we get pulled into that. And I think that's what you've done here. I was talking to Tom about that park with the gazebo and the memorial and the cheese shop. That kind of has that thing too, where because you can see Main Street and you can see that corner and you can see like the mural, and there's if you're a human at all and you have any time, you're just going to be like, what's going on down there? But the beauty's there. So it pulls you in, and now you've just blown this out. So doing that, I thought was just a brilliant thing, because man, it is gorgeous. I saw some pictures and I was like,
then we encourage the former house to do the same, and we also like encouraging everybody to do the same with cheap enough lights with the all LEDs, so it doesn't really cost that much
money,
and we have someone who can install it for them. And so we kind of like almost want to give that package to everybody, because we want them to copy it. I mean, it's not something we want to do.
right.
We would like every single place in town to do it, because then it would be really an attraction for someone to be able to come at night, at the dusk and see everything light up, immediately. That would be really just something to do.
A small little Cuba at night marketing campaign with the dinner, B&B and the Palmer, and I got a brewery, so it's like 4 things: a couple drinks, tickets, B&B package, I have Anne's package, Cuba at night.
Finally getting everything. Yeah. Airbnb, the entertainment, the beer, and the restaurant, and a couple of shops right before that.
Yeah.
Then you have your entire day.
One of my most magical, and this happened repeatedly, and I took a girlfriend I was living with in Rochester to test. I didn't tell her to test this. It was magical. So but I was like, maybe it was just because I lived there. So did you guys ever go to Mendocino? Yeah. So did you ever see Murder, She Wrote?
Yes.
So they shot that there, and it's just incredible. And it looks like the English seaside, and it's up on this precipice, and it's just gorgeous. But there's really nothing to do there. There's just a couple things. But I had the most magical, surreal, like, was that a dream, or did I live that type of moments there in days? And when I came home, sometimes I would dream of that, and I was like, is that possible to have that again? Or was that a moment in time, just the nuance of my life created? So I took this woman there and I gave her a tour of my life, and it was exactly the same. And it was this restaurant, it's this beautiful pub that they have a couple shops, and it's at the setting on this cliff, and it was just as magical. I mean, in other words, it wasn't me, it had nothing to do with me, it's just the place. And that's what you guys have created here. Like, I entered into Mendocino, had this moment just like I always had, and left. And it just was the same beauty and the same magic and the same feeling and the same moments, because there was so much there that accentuated that. Like, you couldn't have a bad time, And
It's just like things like when we went to dinner so Wednesday or Friday, and we opened the door to either end, and you have this hustle and bustle happening, and suddenly you're drawn by the lights because everything was lit up,
right.
And then you come into it, you hear this like mumbling thing, and it's like you're gonna have a good time, and then you have good food, and that's the quality of life. That's what you want to do, and if you can do that and just walk home or take a quick ride home, that's something that nobody could do a year ago.
And that's the thing. And that's the only reason I bring that up is because there really isn't nothing. There's nothing there. There's a couple shops and a restaurant, but it's not that. And that's what you guys have done here. You have almost more than you need at this point. I mean, you don't need much. You have a B&B, you've got the restaurant, you've got the brewery, you've got the Palmer, you've got some other shops, you've got this incredibly beautiful main street that's now getting accentuated in that beauty, and it's getting uplifted. You've got the lake, and you've got the beautiful surroundings and the valleys and the hills. I mean, cheapers. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So people can come and have these days and these memories, because once you do that, just like me with Mendocino, I've been there 3 or 4 times now, and it was very expensive, but it was worth every penny. So it's the memory that I will take, which is the value, and it's the experience, and that's what you're providing here. And that lighting up the town, I haven't seen a town lit up ever in Western New York like that. Period.
Interesting.
So
that was the news. So.
We have another project like one of the other buildings. I've got the lights are all set up on it. As soon as the weather gets good, we're putting lighting in.
Awesome. Yeah, but the architecture here, it's so accentuated when you do that. It almost gives it a whole nother look, because you see every little bit of that beauty, then it just pulls it out. It's almost like 3D. Mm-hmm. The pictures that Paul showed me were just crazy. So, and we'll include that over this talk. So, but yeah. So do you guys we can talk for those 2 hours. Do you guys want to add anything else?
Sorry.
No, I love it. Are you kidding me? But we've got like 4 hours of you guys. Like the Lionel Terry show.
And usually I'm the one that does the talking.
Are you shy?
Believe it,
Lionel?
Well, no,
Yes,
I mean,
I am. I'm not used to it.
and I'm just always like, oh, I've got this story, and then that story leads into the other story, and the other story, and the other story. It's not that he's really shy; he doesn't have a time to like get in.
You can't get a word.
Shut up and let me talk.
Well, thank you for.
But this is more of his. This is more of his,
wheelhouse,
like the way he thinks about the whole.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the other thing, the big problem for us to attract the tenants was that they had to basically either come from working in university. So we in between 3 universities, so that 4 really. We have Alton College, we have St. Bonaventure, Alfred State, Alfred University.
Right.
So that brings already a lot of employment. But it's just not quite enough. So people are living here, working remotely. Right. But I think it's essential to keep on developing jobs. And one of the best ways to get jobs is to create it yourself.
Yep.
And though it's not really something that's easy, and I think over time it makes it more and more difficult.
Right.
And regulations, the complexity of it, big companies really sucking a lot of business out of smaller companies. So the economy makes it very difficult, but I think it's still possible, and it's probably one of the best way for people to create their own jobs. To get a good job is to create it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why we wanted after
business incubation.
Exactly. After we bought O'Malley's and we had a doctor's office downstairs, we didn't know what to do with the small offices. We decided to have it making into an incubator to make sure that small companies or people who had an idea could just test it, see if that would work, and I would try to help them develop the ideas a bit, and over time let them just making a business for themselves.
Well, yeah, and you guys are going to keep going with this, but it is just amazing to see. And the only time I've seen anything even remotely close to this is some of the towns in Northern California, only because it was so ridiculously expensive to even just live there, that if you were going to start a business, you needed some help.
Right.
But it was nothing like what you guys have built, and it will all work. And I didn't even think about all the colleges and the influx of kids with discretionary, disposable income. Seriously, every you get how many new students between those colleges every year coming in, and a lot of them do stay the duration. So that's a whole new crop of kids that you get coming and their families, and you can build this, and this is already a cool town,
Right.
And the more it's going to build, the more cool it's going to be, the more they're going to want to come here. And let's face it, kids love getting in a car and driving somewhere.
Right.
It's super fun.
Yeah, and it's also a delicate balance, because if you go to Alfred, they really kill the town.
Yep.
The university is basically they're forcing the students to take the meal package, and therefore the kids would have to pay extra to get a meal outside the campus instead
Right.
of eating inside. And they don't necessarily offer the right meals to the athletes. They don't really offer high protein meals or anything.
Yeah.
So they basically not only not servicing the students properly, but they also taking a lot of business out of the small commerce that would be.
Yeah, and I heard complaints from the people when I was.
It's sad to see, because it's a very charming.
Yeah, it is.
Beautiful campus, but you basically all the business there are just non.
You're cannibalizing your own town.
Yeah,
it's a horrible thing to see.
It's really not a nice place to be anymore when you see the potential that it probably was
Exactly.
10 years ago. Or I don't know when, but you see that potential, and you see, and I was asking everybody, why is it not a great town? Why is it not, buzzing everywhere?
I felt the same. Yeah,
and it was so.
When I first went there, so I had never been there before, and I love college towns. And I lived in one in California, and then. That's because they're just dynamic and they're diverse and everything's happening, and there's these beautiful places, and they're kind of crazy and fun and unique. And I go there and I didn't get that at all. And I was like, what's going on here? It seems like it should be just popping, at the seams, because there's no town that has two colleges on either side of the street with that popular. Yeah, it should just be bursting. And so I had 6 sponsors, 7 sponsors there. And I talked to most of the business owners in town. It's exactly what you said.
Sure. And so it's always difficult, and I don't know how the cheese factory is going to be in Franklin. It's so easy for a huge company to come in and kill everything around them. So it's always a balance between creating a company welcome bigger companies, but you have to also be careful that they not cannibalize everything and then leave. When the town is
because they're going to survive, and that's the shame of it all. And it's no different. So Alfred University and Alfred State are going to be there no matter what, right? Yes. But the guy who opens up a coffee shop or a restaurant isn't going to be, and it's going to actually destroy his life.
Yeah.
But there's because everybody goes in there with that same intent. You're like, well, there's how many students here? How can I? It's like shooting fish in a barrel. How can I go wrong? But then you don't get the business. And everybody, the girl who owns the carrot, I forget. It's this beautiful organic market there, and she was complaining too. And she moved from Colorado, or she was a museum curator in Chicago. I think then she lived in Colorado, but she moved there too. She wanted a beautiful, safe town to raise her boy, and she had a home there for some reason, and she kicked the tenants out, moved in, and started her shop. But she's struggling, and she shouldn't be struggling at all.
Not there.
So no, it's a good point, and that's what's so special about Cuba, is because it's this beautiful balance of everything that you would want in a small town. It's honestly, I think it's just right now, it's even just perfect what you guys have built here. You just
not fully within, let's say 5 years. Let's say if you come back in 5 years, I think you'll see
probably another really
an interesting town that's going to be really remarkable. Very different. I think we're not going in the path of Silicon Hill, for example, that did great, but for other reasons, and I think really became something that we're not going to become.
Good.
I think it's going to be a very different town, but I think it's going to be successful and rich of people and families and businesses that we see coming. And we're seeing so many people investing. Someone invested from California, I forgot his name, invested. He has 2 Airbnbs on the lake. He builds those mini houses for rent, and he's doing a full business.
Oh wow! Okay.
Those Airbnb cottages.
Yeah.
And we see people bought the building next door and renovating them. We keep hearing those investors that just buy the buildings, and I think we to the point where there's only 2 buildings. One's going to be full soon, and one already have projects to be a cannabis dispensary. So I would say within a year or two, all the business in towns will be fields. Versus 10 years ago, there were so few of them.
Well, there's a wealth of riches here. There is. I mean, just geographically what you have and architecturally what you have, and then the people, and now the businesses. And
but I think they're all going to be struggling, and I think a lot of the stores you're seeing today will be different in 2 years, because a lot of them not going to make it, because it takes so much time to create your clientele. It's not something in town where you can just expect the foot traffic to bring people in.
Well, and those early adopters, it's a different mindset when you're an early adopter, and they do. You're right. They have to work at this because, and I hope maybe the merchants, because Melissa was telling me there was a merchants organization now, and I hope that they start doing a lot of aggressive marketing, because people want to come here once they come here, but you got to discover it first, and that's the trick.
And they say build it and they'll come. Well, no, they're not coming. Yet they're going to take time, and it's going to take a very long time. And I'm thinking, yes, it might take 3-5 years or more to really have a booming business. And few people understand that when they start a business. Few people have the funds to survive for 5 years, which means most of the time you would create a business and work at the same time, like we did. We worked while renovating the buildings, because you cannot really create enough, business immediately. And yes, you don't have the high rents. Yes, you don't have, there's a lot of great things.
Yes, and that's a trade-off, right? If you open up in Ellicottville, your rents are going to be through the roof. And so you've got it's the same problem in a different light. Do you know what I mean? You're just trading one thing for another, because you're going to have higher, right? You're going to have the foot traffic, but then you're going to have the same overhead problems there. You're going to have, whether it's employees to manage the traffic, whether people are buying or not, you're still going to need the employees to service them. And then you're going to have your overhead and your rent and whatever. And here you've got a disproportionate, your rent's really nothing here comparatively. And that gives you, to me, that's just a long-term thing, because that's going to give you a better foothold if you can get the people in the door. But like you said, you have the colleges within 20 minutes, within a half hour right here. So if you get the unique businesses that are, to the town, that's the draw. The draw is, there's like a layered amount of businesses here that when I come to Cuba, I get this unique experience. And I don't get anywhere else.
I'm one of the mentor in a competition that Incubator Works, which is in Alfred and in Corning, is doing, and they for a business pitch. So basically, they have 7 teams this year, and the best business pitch gonna be again like up to $5,000 and offices in their incubator. So that I'm seeing, other companies trying to create that leadership and that entrepreneurship mindset for people to be able to come in and start a business with that knowledge. Because if you don't have the starting knowledge to create a business, you will fail necessarily. So this is also another component that's essential. I'm also seeing in Allegheny, there's a Accord that offers classes, like they have a 4 weeks right now, and they offer a 10-week class in the summer where people can learn for very effective cost to learn to be to basic entrepreneurial, the basic things. I think, and though we're surrounded by colleges that I'm sure they have classes on entrepreneurship, then you don't really have the draw for people to stay here and try to become entrepreneurs locally. And I think that is probably the next thing we have to work on, to be able to bring enough people to stay here, create their companies here, test them here in a small scale, and be able to be successful. Because once you do it, with the internet, and you should be able to, if you sell and successful here, you can replicate it somewhere else.
That's a great pitch. Cuba. what you just said. That's beautiful.
And that's one of the goals we're trying to do with the center, but with there's a lot of actors in this field to really create that leadership and entrepreneurship mindset, so there will be more talent coming in, because ultimately we need more talent in
and that's all it is.
Work and to make it.
Well, so where's the capacity now? Would you say the town's about 60% full? Or more?
I think there's only, it's pretty much full on all the retail level.
Okay.
And there's only 2 places right now that are not in business.
Also,
that will be in business soon.
Yeah, it's full.
Yeah, it's becoming there. But I think there will still need some of the business will fail and will renew. I mean, some of
it's going to happen no matter what. Because it's the willpower of the owner a lot of times, and like you said, it's the drive and the wherewithal. You got to see those first years through. And so many people, and we all do it, and you get involved in a business, and if you didn't believe in yourself, you wouldn't be doing it in the first place, right? So sometimes you might believe in yourself a little, you get deluded because you have to believe in yourself. So you might convince yourself like it's going to be this, and this, when it's not. When you get involved in it, the reality hits you and you're like, well, this is a whole nother thing. And if you're resourceful enough, you can find a way through that. But it's very difficult. And I've done this for a long time. I grew up in an entrepreneurial household, and it's not easy, and it's not for everybody. And in this day and age, a lot of people get sold a bill of goods on entrepreneurship, and they don't realize that I lived like a rat, and I came back and I lived like a rat. I lived in offices. I lived in the back of a oil shop. I lived in I lived in a box. Was it the box building in Fairport there? I forget what it's called. But I lived in a old cinder block 10 by 10 room, and I slept on the floor when I came home. I mean, I just got a divorce. I moved home. I had no money. I got my show, and I was like, I got to make it work. But a lot of people aren't able to do that, or don't realize that when you do that, the reality of that is not fun, and it's not glory. There's no glory there. But you got to see that through. So if you can get through those first few years, then you start to reap the benefits of that. So, and I think, what like Roxanne's doing, I don't know how well she's doing, but she loves her business. She's thankful for you guys. And when I was in there a couple times, she did have customers in the store, and she did have people coming in.
Yeah, it seems to be really working better and better. I'm seeing more and more people in the center. And now that you have although the center is full now, so we basically have 7 businesses.
Oh, it is? I didn't know it was full.
Yes. Okay. So we have 7 new businesses created within a year. We just celebrated a couple of weeks ago, the 1-year anniversary of the center.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
we just created 7 new business, and I think most of them will be in business in the long run, because they tested the model, they know what works. They might need a little more time to really make it a full-time business, but I think they have everything they need by now to be successful.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you guys are amazing, man. Honestly, I had watched the whole interview you did before, and now with this, I mean, it's just really incredible what you're doing. And the town would not be what it is without you guys, and you have to know that. And what's going to happen in the future is on the backs of what you guys have done and what they've done, and this whole tiering here. So without you guys, who knows what would have happened? It's no different than
just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, but a huge piece though, because you guys were, first in, and first in's rough sometimes because you're first in. There's no roadmap, and you guys kind of laid. They couldn't have had, honestly, and I'm confident in saying this, that in the future, when people look back, there couldn't have been a better pair to come in here and do the work that you did, because it was the right people at the right time, and it's why Mike did this. And when I listen to Mike say that, I get chills, because I'm like, that's crazy, because that's no different than saying, I'm going to move to Paris and I got this idea, or like what any entrepreneur does, or any person does. If you have this gut feeling that you should follow this thing, but you don't know where that's going to lead, you just know that it was the right decision, but you also don't know the exponential butterfly effect of that. And the butterfly effect that this is going to have was the right thing. You didn't come in, you didn't try to modernize it or do something weird and tangential. You respected the town, you put it back, and you improved it, and the improvements that you've made have respected the past but moved it into the future. And that's such a difficult line to straddle, but it takes the right component, and you guys are the right people at the right time. So
it's very important for us to keep the history, all from the moldings, but to also make the signs to explain the history of it, to make sure everybody would know where they live and enjoy the history of every single room they're in. But
Yeah, it's huge, man. I honestly, I'm sure as we move through this whole thing and I get this done and go through the next couple of years, what you guys have done here is going to become more and more important.
Yeah.
You know,
and we hope that other people will take our lead and just do the same thing, because I hope we can, and we're more than willing to share our business on like how design, and so I put the design online, the colors I'm using, so people can just basically copy the look and just, here we go, we know this is working, people like it, people want it, so we can offer all that expertise to them for free and let other people do the same thing around, because we need basically more of this, and we don't have the funds to do it all, so we need other people to come on.
It's success begets success.
Yes.
Right? So you guys can lay the template and the groundwork, and then off you go. It's awesome. Thanks, man. This has been great. Yeah, this is perfect. Is your butt sore?